Alright guys, so here we have our dinosaurs. I've got him all down on my poster board, I've got my glue swirls, and he should be stuck down there pretty good. We can still break him off here and break pieces. We don't want to do that. What we want to try to do is get rid of the square edges of our poster board so this looks more like a rock around our dinosaur. So what I'm going to do is with my scissors I'm just going to kind of cut and just kind of cut like a bubble cut almost, and I don't want to use real straight lines. I'm just going to kind of cut little round lines around my dinosaur, and then I'm going to paint him with a few steps. Alright, so just hold tight and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, now that we have our dinosaur cut out, what we want to do is paint the dinosaur white in the background. Paint everything white so it kind of looks the same. But if we look at this shape, this is a free-form shape, meaning that it's not a geometric shape, it's not a circle, it's not a square, it's not a triangle. It has its kind of own boundary. So this is called a free-form shape. And what I really tried to do was get rid of all the square and straight edges to it. So I just kind of cut these like it's kind of like in a bubble. The next step is we're going to paint the dinosaur. So what I want you to do is just get some white paint if you have some. Take a brush, dip it in here, and we're not going to paint it like we normally would where you do brush strokes. I kind of want you guys doing a little painting like this where we're kind of dabbing it in to kind of get in all those areas. So they're going to start off by just kind of painting our dinosaur white. You see that I have my tan paper underneath my artwork, and that's so I don't get any paint on the table when I'm painting. Alright, so once you have your dinosaur painted, where we're kind of using the dabbing technique, I want you to wait, let this dry, clean your brush, clean your area, and then we're going to try to add one step on top of this to give our dinosaur, making it look a little more vintage and a little more weathered, kind of like an actual stone or rock might look. Alright, hold tight, let this dry, and I'll come back. Alright guys, so now that we see that the paint has dried, some of it is cracking a little bit just from being on top of the glue. That's fine, that's kind of cool. We're going to just try to get as much texture on our artwork as we can. We still have some of this white paint here. I want to take a little bit of black. You can use a little bit of black, or you can use a little bit of brown, or anything that's going to make it look like a little bit more of a natural color. I'm just going to put a few dots of it in. You really don't need a lot because we're trying to make a gray color. So you want to mix it up with something. Okay, now it's a little more gray. If I want to add a few more dots in, I can add a few more dots in. Really, anytime you're trying to blend a gray color, you really don't want to use a lot of black because it can take over pretty quick. So I'm just adding a few as I go. Alright, and you can leave it with the swirls in there if you want. And then basically what we're going to do is use some of this paint to come over top of our artwork, but we're going to use a special technique to do that. I'm going to show you in just a moment. Alright guys, so I did end up actually using a little bit more black in my paint just to make it a little bit more gray of a color. The painting technique that we want to start doing now, I'm going to put this off to the side, is called a dry brush technique. So I've already got a little paint on my brush here. Basically, you want to stick your paintbrush in the paint. You do not want it to look shiny and runny. So I'm just going to start kind of using the side of the cup to kind of wipe off some of the paint. Okay, you just want to be able to have a little bit of paint on your brush where you can see it like this. And then you want to find another piece of paper that you have, and you want to start brushing the paint off of your brush. Okay, so it should look like kind of like this. Once you get these kind of streaky brush strokes, that's when I want you to kind of go over and start painting over some of your dinosaur. This is our dry brush technique. We want to go everywhere. Get into the little cracks here. You can see our glue lines start to show up. You do want to see some of the white, so I'm not going to try to get all this painted gray. I want to leave some of the white where my dinosaur is. So that's part of the technique when you dry brush paint. And this is going to help it make a little bit older looking, more like an actual rock or something like that. That's what we're going for. So you want to go everywhere you can. You really want to make sure that the paint is almost wiped off of your brush before you start doing this. Alright, so there we go. That step is done. I'm going to put this stuff off to the side, and we have one more to do. Alright, the last step you can do right after you finish painting is actually just, while it's still just a little wet, you want to try to wipe off just a little bit of the paint. Not all of it, just kind of rub off some of the paint here. And that'll help still give it a little bit more of that antique vintage look we're going for. So we're going to dry brush, then right after we're done dry brushing, we are going to go ahead and wipe off some of the extra paint. You're really not wiping off a ton if you look at my paper here, but you are wiping off a little bit, and it will help it look a little more antique. Now if you wipe too hard, you're going to rip the clay, and we don't want to do that, so don't wipe too hard. And if you do rip the clay, just use a little bit of more glue, Elmer's glue, and you got it. Glue it right back down. Okay, so that's our project for today. Alright, so here is what your finished and final artwork might look like when you're done. I've painted with a dry brush, I've wiped off with the extra, and it kind of gives me a little vintage weathered rock look for my dinosaur fossil. Make sure to upload when you guys are finished so I can get you guys credit for doing the projects. Can't wait to see what everyone is making.